Hello, I'm Darren Magee, and the topic for today's video continues on from last time where I outlined the DARVO method, a technique that is often used by narcissistic people to avoid accountability, to attack and to blame their victims. You might want to check that out if you're unfamiliar with the term and how it often plays out. But at the end of the video, I asked if people would be interested in learning some ideas to help manage themselves whenever people employ that method. Seem to get a lot of positive response, so that's what I'm going to outline today. And if you stick to the end of the video, I'll give you a real-life example of a workplace narcissist who used the DARVO method once too often. So if you find this video interesting or helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel. Just to remind you though, this video is for information purposes only and is not a substitute for support from a mental health professional. So just to remind you, DARVO is an acronym and it stands for Deny, Attack, and Reverse Victim Offender. It's a very effective tactic for a narcissist as it can confuse the hell out of their victims and can shame, sometimes even frighten them into silence. So the following are just some ideas that you might find helpful. And as I've said in previous videos, particularly around managing boundaries, whatever you do, it begins with being very careful and making sure you're safe. Because sometimes you could just be dealing with the kind of person who wets the bed and blames the blanket. Other times you could be dealing with someone who is vindictive, callous, and sadistic. And sometimes there is no way of telling how a narcissistic person will react to being challenged, so you always make sure you're safe. This is not about trying to antagonize anyone. Secondly, and I think this is an important point, this isn't about winning. If you're thinking about trying to win, you probably won't. You won't in the sense that a narcissistic person is not going to accept any evidence you may have. They can be very elusive when it comes to accepting responsibility. The reality of their behavior is just maybe too shameful for them. Their defense mechanisms kick in, so they will reject whatever you say, whatever you have against them outright, and go on the attack. So it's not about winning. It's about showing that DARVO doesn't work on you anymore. And I'm not going to claim that any of this is easy, because it isn't. It hurts to be lied to be manipulated, devalued, invalidated, even threatened. So some things that might make it easier is to not expect them to change, not to accept that they were wrong or to acknowledge their behavior. If they were to, that might cause a narcissistic collapse, hence the defense mechanisms. Also, try to find safety and support from people who care about you, people who will listen to you, advise you, validate you, and encourage you. Now, this could be in therapy, it could be from friends, family, support groups, even online forums. You utilize whatever support you can get, and you also be kind and compassionate towards yourself. There is no shame on having been on the wrong end of a narcissist. There is no shame in being lied to or lied about. So when it comes to dealing with the DARVO method, probably your greatest asset is knowledge. In other words, you know the strategy. DARVO, they will deny it, they will attack you, they will attack the evidence, they will claim that you are bullying them, they are being victimized. You know the pattern, which prepares you for what's to come. And when they're employing this tactic, they will try to make it about you, about your character, about your personality. Try to remember it isn't, because they will do this with anyone, so try not to personalize it. When you keep that knowledge in mind, there's less chance they're going to blindside you. There's less chance they will suck you into a word salad, circular reasoning argument that there's no way you can win. And remember, you can pick your battles. You do not have to engage at all. You leave them as they are what they are. But if you do have to engage, for example, you have to point out their behavior, then you state your case. You be brief, factual, to the point. You don't necessarily give an explanation. Because remember, a common tactic with narcissism is to pretend they don't know what you're talking about. The more you explain yourself, they're behaving as if this is news to them. The more information you give, the more you explain, the less they'll understand, and that could drive anyone insane. And it also gives them more ammunition, more things to pick holes in, more things to attack you with. If you have to repeat anything, just say the same thing again, using your best customer care tone of voice. Don't try to reword it in the hope they will understand. If they're using DARVO, they probably already do understand. And if you reword it, they might claim that you're changing your story, your line, or you're confusing them even further. So don't fall for it. And expect the denial. Of course they're going to deny it. The D in DARVO stands for deny. Now, you think about it, they could be covered in chocolate. It's all over their face. You ask them, did you eat the chocolate? They'll say no. Doesn't matter how ridiculous they look or sound. But once they deny it, you know what's going to come next. And that's the attack. You expect them to attack your character, your memory, your motives, your mental health. They will pull anything out of the bag they can. They will play on your insecurities, your doubts, your past errors, mistakes, even your regrets. Now remember, the attacks are aimed at shutting you down. Now if you've said what you need to say, you don't necessarily have to go any further. You can disengage from there. But if you do have to continue, then it's the same thing. You're brief, you're factual, and you're to the point using your customer care tone of voice. You try to stay focused on the issue at hand, regardless of what they come back with. Now, this can be difficult, especially if others are present, but you try not to defend yourself against their allegations. Don't try to get into a debate. They'll probably accuse you of gaslighting. Try not to get into an argument, especially one with raised voices. They will use that as evidence of you being abusive. Keep bringing it back to the actual issue. Next is the role reversal from them being the aggressor to them being the victim. Now, if you have maybe set a boundary, for instance, you tell them the only communication has to be in written form or maybe with a neutral third party present, then you stick to it. Now, to them, this will make you unreasonable, it will make you unfair, it will make you controlling. Remember, DARVO relies heavily on emotive language. It relies on emotive behavior in order to shame, guilt trip, sometimes even threaten. But let me put it to you this way. Pointing out their actions, the impact of their actions, setting a boundary to them is the most cruel, selfish, unkind, evil thing anyone could ever do to a fellow human being. If they honestly think that that's being unreasonable, then just be unreasonable. Again, as hard as it is, stand your ground and hold on to your integrity. Disengage if you have to. Remember, it's not about winning, it's just about showing them that DARVO doesn't work. You've made your point, you've set your boundary, whether they accept it or not. Now, another thing that DARVO relies on is the victim's fear of other people's opinions. And this can be a very painful thing to deal with. I often think that's why narcissistic people often threaten their victims. They're going to tell other people about them. But the things they threaten to tell are often false allegations. But they threaten to contact their victims' friends, family, workplaces. They threaten to put things out there on social media. They're relying on the victim's fear of a loss of status, not being believed, being rejected, and the fear of being isolated even further. Which is why I said at the beginning, make sure you have a good support network around you. Now, if you were in a long-term relationship or an environment where you were psychologically and emotionally abused for a long period of time, you might recognize the abuser often used others to triangulate and to mob you, to further their narrative, to carry out the abuse on their behalf. Now, these people are commonly referred to as flying monkeys. Again, this might be difficult, but it might be prudent to minimize the contact with their supporters as much as possible. Now, that might have to mean coming off social media or maybe blocking some people on social media so that you don't have to look at their comments. Again, yes, it can hurt like hell when your character is being assassinated, but sometimes keeping that distance is the best thing to do to help with your recovery. What you're doing is you're minimizing the effect of the blame shifting. You're not wasting energy in defending yourself against lies. You're putting that energy into where it needs to be, into your recovery, into managing your boundaries. And lastly, a lot of people find it helpful to keep a record of what has happened or what has been happening. Now, you might never do anything with those records. You're certainly under no obligation to show them to anyone, but they can help keep you sane. Now, that could be keeping a diary, it could be keeping screenshots of messages, keeping texts, emails, anything. Because when things are denied, whenever you're being blamed, whenever the evidence of your own eyes and ears is being called into doubt, you have a record of things that help keep you grounded and keep things in perspective. So lastly, to summarize, the best way to deal with the DARVO method is to first of all know what it is, how it works, what it relies on, and how to counter it appropriately. You stay safe, you don't antagonize, you utilize every bit of support that you can muster. You accept they are what they are, you accept they will deny it. You don't engage with the attacks, and you avoid the role reversal. You stand your ground, you keep your integrity, maintain your character, and try to minimize the impact of other people's opinions on you. And as I say, it can be easier when you don't have to go through it alone. So what is it happens next? Well, I've made videos on what happens when narcissists lose control over you, what happens when you ignore a narcissist, and the kind of things that can cause narcissistic collapse, if you want to check those out. But if there is anything that you have found helpful to help manage yourself when people use the DARVO method, if you feel comfortable enough, please feel free to share it in the comment box below. Someone reading that might benefit from your wisdom and your experience. But if you find this video interesting, please consider subscribing to my channel, and until next time, thanks for watching. Now, a friend of mine has recently shared this with me, and she's okay with me sharing it with you. I'm not suggesting this is what you do, okay? But I'd just like to give you an example of how some people manage DARVO in the workplace. Now, she said a few years ago she worked in this place and there was a manager there. He was a real nasty piece of work. He was vindictive, spiteful, he was very critical, used a lot of bad language and bullying tactics. And anytime anyone tried to assert themselves, he would come down on them like a ton of bricks, and more often than not, they were disciplined. Sometimes there was even a disciplinary taken out against one or two of them. But what she learned to do is whenever they were in meetings, anytime he said anything that she didn't like the sound of, he would be insulting, he would be judgmental, critical, he would be lying through his teeth. Anytime he did anything like that, she lifted her notebook out and she would just write it down in front of him, wouldn't even hide it, let him see that she was writing it down. Anytime he gave her instructions, she told him to put it into an email, which he very rarely did. But the times he wouldn't put it in an email, she would send him an email confirming that he had instructed her to do this. Now, after a period of time, other people in that team started to do the same thing, and the guy was running out of wriggle room. And one day, she said in a meeting, he went into a complete and utter narcissistic rage, accused everyone of working against him, everyone of plotting against him, everyone bullying him, and he threatened to take disciplinaries out on every single one of them, which they suggested perhaps he should. And they presented about 6 months worth of emails and notes and minuted meetings showing his behavior over that long period of time. And he was the one who was disciplined. But that took courage, it took patience, and it took them to support each other. It feels good when the good guys win.